Hello, I'm Ryan DiCorpo, and I am speaking with this year's Teacher of Peace honoree, Archbishop John C. Wester of the Archdiocese of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Born in San Francisco, he was ordained a priest in 1976 and appointed as auxiliary bishop there by Pope John Paul II in 1998. 9 years later, in 2007, he was named by Pope Benedict XVI as the Bishop of Salt Lake City, Utah. And since 2015, he has led the Archdiocese of Santa Fe, appointed to his current role by Pope Francis. Your Excellency, thank you for joining me today, and congratulations on 50 years in the priesthood.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Very kind of you.
In 2022, you published a pastoral letter on nuclear disarmament and said your archdiocese, quote, must be part of a strong peace initiative, end quote, to prevent the future use of nuclear weapons. Los Alamos, where the first atomic bombs were built, is part of your archdiocese. Considering the history of your region in constructing nuclear arms, how should your archdiocese and other American bishops respond to the moral issue of nuclear weapons today?
Well, I believe, Ryan, that we here in Santa Fe, and indeed all Catholics, all bishops, all Catholics, should respond rather vigorously to the threat that's posed by nuclear weapons in our world today. As you know, we're already in a second arms race, far more dangerous than the first. And now we have to add the prospect of AI, which is in the news so much these days, and also hypersonic delivery systems. The pit cores, the new pit cores that are being built in Los Alamos today, multi-billion dollars every fiscal year given to them for that project, is the modernization of our whole nuclear arsenal. It's not just it's not kind of some kind of a superficial thing. It's really a substantial new movement to completely modernize our entire nuclear arsenal. So this is really uh, threatening and very dangerous and very concerning. Pope Francis, from a moral point of view, really did a lot when he said that even possessing nuclear arms is immoral. And so that really, in 1983, as you know, the bishops of the United States did allow for deterrence, but now that's off the table because of what the Pope has said. So I think it's alarming. But to your point, I think that here in Santa Fe, particularly, this is where the atomic bomb started on July 16th, 1945. We entered the nuclear age as a human race. And so I think that's significant that the Archdiocese would be part of a strong movement to rid the world of nuclear weapons.
You just said that we're in a second arms race that is more dangerous than the first. How is it more dangerous? Is it because of artificial intelligence or is it something else?
Well, it is that. I think that's part of it. What I've read thus far, for example, in one scenario, AI was given this scenario, and they, now these numbers, please don't quote me, 'cause I don't remember them. It was something like, three-quarters of the time, the AI went to use tactical nuclear weapons, and about 25% of the time, they went to strategic nuclear weapons. So you got here a computer making a decision about the fate of all humanity. As you know, there have been times that when human beings have been involved, we luckily and fortunately and providentially, they did not push the button. That Russian military officer, for example, that we all know about in the 80s and things of that nature. So human beings have a conscience. Human beings have a heart. Human beings, and certainly nuclear weapons are dangerous in our hands and even more dangerous in the hands of a computer. But as I mentioned, hypersonic delivery systems, and also just this kind of panicky, chaotic race to get as many nuclear weapons as you can under the idea that this is going to protect us. And so this second arms race is really dangerous, particularly in the context of the geopolitical situation we find ourselves in today with, the war in Ukraine, the war that we just heard last night that Iran and the United States and Israel going at it again. all the other wars. I think there are over 150 wars or conflicts going on in the world today. So it's quite dangerous. And that, of course, doesn't even take into account the uh, a terrorist or a rogue nation or something like that, or accidents or things of that nature. So I think it's critical. The trouble is, we say nuclear weapons exist in silos. That's physically true, but it's also metaphorically true that I don't think the average person thinks much about them, frankly. And when I bring it up, I feel like a skunk at a lawn party. So I don't know. I think we all have a false sense of security, frankly, and we just don't. Uh, I think it's the fact this arms race is going on again is in itself very, very troubling, and the fact that most people aren't aware of it is even more troubling.
You mentioned here and in your pastoral letter that Pope Francis shifted the church away from deterrence and called all nuclear weapons immoral, advocated for their abolition. And in May, in response to criticism from President Trump after the Vatican denounced the Iran war, Pope Leo said, quote, "If anyone wants to criticize me for proclaiming the gospel, let them do so with the truth. The church has spoken out against all nuclear weapons for years." He also, as you know, recently published his first encyclical, Magnificat Humanitas, about artificial intelligence. Do you see Pope Leo in his words about nuclear arms and his thoughts on AI, like Pope Francis, as an ally in this fight against nuclear arms?
Yes, I do. And I see that very much so. I think it's clear to me from what you just said and other quotes from the Pope about nuclear arms specifically and about peace in general, that it's clear that Pope Leo is squarely against nuclear weapons and squarely against deterrence as a strategy. I think that's quite clear. And I think my sense is that the Pope's strategy is to certainly continue. It's how would I put it? Pope Francis and Pope Leo are alike in many ways, but they're not twins. They're not clones of each other. So I think that certainly Pope Leo is following in the footsteps in many ways, and that Pope Francis set forth, but he's doing it in his own way. And so I see that, from my point of view, Pope Leo, from my point of view, is happy that Pope Francis brought this out, that he said nuclear weapons are immoral. And now I think Pope Leo is going to engage that conversation. And this seems to me to be his genius and the way he wants to allow the church, the Holy Spirit, to work in the church, to engage that conversation in a very serious and intentional way. So I think it's uh, he's going to also do it I see that I kind of see a certain patience in his style, in his Petrine ministry, that he's not rushing, he's not, that he wants to do things well and let the Holy Spirit really work in us and to really listen and also to speak when he feels he should. So I think he's doing a great, as you can tell, I'm very enamored of him. I think he's going to do a great job. And I think in this regard, he's going to be a real strong ally. And of course, too, the Pope's concern, like Francis, with the poor. And that's another reason why nuclear weapons are immoral, is that not only because of what they can do, but even when they're not doing anything, they've taken great sums of money from the poor and those on the peripheries and those in need. Think of the money that could be spent in education and in medical advances, for example, that's not being spent. So, and also think of the people that have been harmed by nuclear weapons and their development. Here in New Mexico, we have the Tularosa Basin, where we know for a fact that people have been harmed, and we know the lies that have been told to them over the last 8 decades, and the contamination of water and soil. So that the harm of nuclear weapons is enormous. It's in their development, it's in their possible use, and obviously when they were used in Japan. So So this is something that's, I think the Pope is going to be very much in our, a very strong ally and giving us leadership in nuclear disarmament.
I want to switch topics a bit here because in late June, so just last month, you and six other Catholic bishops can celebrated a mass attended by many priests and women religious at the southern border in Nogales, Arizona. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has been outspoken in recent months about the need to welcome migrants and treat all immigrants with human dignity amid a flurry of anti-immigration actions and rhetoric from the Trump administration. Just last month, the Supreme Court ruled that the federal government can turn away asylum seekers at the border. What message did you hope to send to Catholics by attending this Mass? And how does this connect to your larger peace and justice work?
Well, we bishops got together in this part of the Southwest to do this because for that particular Mass in Nogales, Arizona, we wanted to, first of all, highlight the contribution of migrants in this country for the past 250 years. Because I think that narrative gets overlooked and because of the false narratives that are out there. The tremendous debt that this country owes to immigrants in this past 250 years. So we want to highlight that. Secondly, we wanted to support Pope Leo, knowing that he was going to have Mass at Lampedusa on July 4th. And again, to lift up the situation that migrants find themselves in our world today. And then thirdly, I would say we wanted to have an opportunity to teach what the church holds to be true about migration, about the dignity of every human being, about the right of human beings to stay home, about the right of human beings to migrate, about the rights of sovereign nations to manage their borders, and about the fact that that right of the state is not does not trump God's gifts, that people have inalienable rights given to them by God. And a lot of people think that the Catholic Church is for open borders. Nothing could be farther from the truth. We are not for open borders. We're for borders that are managed with compassion and prudence. And we've been advocating for that for years, for comprehensive immigration reform. And sadly, the United States has yet to achieve that. And we came close in the mid 80s, but it just hasn't come about. So I see it as a failed system. People attack the immigrants, which is wrong in my view. They should be advocating, pressing their elected officials to get the job done and to recognize the dignity of human beings. And this is a very integral part of peace, is to recognize the dignity of every human being. And we're talking about immigrants who are wonderful people. So we wanted to say very strongly to the administration that we want to keep families together and that we want due process and we don't want mass deportation and we want humane detention centers and we don't want people being deported to countries where they don't speak the language, know the culture, and in some cases they're being deported to countries that our own State Department advises our citizens not to go to because they're too dangerous. So I think it's quite clear that what we have today in our United States in this current administration is really a very poorly thought out, mean kind of approach to immigration that is so far from the solution that we need. So I pray that, that our elected officials will see the light, so to speak, and that they will work, the administration and the Congress will work together to do their job. And to, and then when you mentioned there, Ryan, it's ironic to me that so many people say, well, our immigrants are breaking the law. The United States is breaking the law by not allowing those who have a legitimate cause of asylum and safety to be heard. And then this latest thing of the Supreme Court, which I thought was horrendous, to do away with TPS for Haitians and Syrians. The TPS is based not on a time clock, it's based on the threat. To me, it's like you're waiting at an intersection to turn left, And you look at your watch. Well, I've been waiting for 45 seconds. I'm going to go now. No, you go when it's clear. TPS is lifted when it's clear. And anybody who knows anything about the sad situation in Haiti today and Syria knows that it's not clear yet. So I just think this is so contrary to the gospel and so contrary to the bishop's work about welcoming the stranger in our midst, that we have to pray hard that we can. I think we have to pray hard too for to share with. That's why we had that mass that you asked about, to share with our Catholic brothers and sisters as well, because we've been fed such false narratives for so long. Things like saying that immigrants are felons and murderers and rapists, things like this. We use words like tsunami and hordes. These are all words that reflect danger. That we're in jeopardy. The truth of the matter is, our immigrants are, by studies have shown clearly that comparing, if you want, people like me, citizens, to immigrants, the immigrant community is far more law-abiding than we are. So those are things that we wanted to at least highlight as best we could by having that mass in Nogales.
I want to follow up on something that you mentioned, which is an ongoing public debate about how a country, the United States specifically, can balance administering its borders with respecting the rights and human dignity of asylum seekers and migrants. There are some Catholic officials in federal government that have responded to what the Vatican has said, what the Pope Francis has said, what Pope Leo has said, with, well, we have the right to decide who can come in, and we have the right to administer our borders in whatever way we choose. And the church has responded with emphasizing the rights and human dignity of asylum seekers. I'm wondering, how does a nation, in your view, balance those two imperatives of controlling the border, but also respecting immigrants?
Well, you raise a good point, and there certainly is a tension there, and there's going to be people on both sides of the equation who feel one side's gone too far and not far enough. But I think, as I made allusion to, it's true that a sovereign state does have the right to manage its borders, and so it has to take into account, how many, and for example, it's very common practice if a nation needs tech workers or people of that nature, then they might want to raise that number and whatever. But that has to be done with, we would say, of course, from the gospel perspective, call it Catholic social teaching, or if you wish, with humanitarian compassion, sensitivity in mind. It's just a basic human tendency to want to help people in need. This is people are, God created us, we're good. People are good by nature, and this is something that countries, and our very own country, we have a legacy of welcoming immigrants because we have a legacy of being generous as a country and giving of ourselves. So, but we can't take in every single immigrant, obviously. And we have to be able to catch the bad actors and have a way to kind of the cartels and drug lords and human smugglers and people like that. But the balance can be achieved. I mean, it can be done. And so comprehensive immigration reform would allow for that. So they would allow for example, by having permeable borders. So a lot of immigrants don't want to stay here forever. They want to work here and then go home. So if we had a system like especially today with the technology and AI of biometrics, with to be able to give people a card that would allow them to come and go across the border, they could work here and then go home again. A lot of people, this may be a blow to our American ego. A lot of people don't want to live here. They want to stay home. People love their home. There's no place like home. And so that would be one way of doing it, giving the judges more discretion, giving them back their authority. A lot of authority has been taken away from judges. That's why we have judges, to make judicial decisions, to hear the person's case and to be able to judge whether that immigrant should be able to come in or not, or how the immigrant should be able to come in. You can come in with a work visa. You can come in with a student visa. You can come in with a religious worker visa. And then you can stay this amount of time, then you have to go back. So in other words, it would be able to manage those borders prudently and wisely. That would be another way of what comprehensive immigration reform is asking for. Another thing that nations are called to do, and this is a hard pull. I know this is not easy, and this is a long-term thing, but we need to get at the root causes of immigration. Why are people, there's a whole new category now these past decades of forced immigrants. We have asylum seekers and refugees and immigrants. We also have forced immigrants who are leaving economic persecution and political persecution and other moral persecution, if you will. So there's all kinds of reasons why would someone risk their lives? I've talked to personally, and Bishop Seitz and I were down there in Tegucigalpa talking to a family. The man has a limp to this day because he was shot by gangs in Tegucigalpa for not allowing their son to be part of the gang because the son didn't want to kill people and become part of that gang. So people are not risking their lives and limbs for nothing. They're doing it because they're trying to survive. So if we can if we can start working on the root causes, one of those things, of course, is national debt. For us to work with the debt that many countries are under holds them back and doesn't allow them to provide prudently and well, rather, for their citizens. So there are many other things too that we could talk about, ways for us to manage our borders that allow us to do so in a comprehensive, intelligent, prudent way. And by the way, I may add, we need immigrants. If every immigrant were to leave the United States tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., our economy would collapse. What would we do? Even now, with what we're seeing in the second Trump administration, I hear on the news people worrying, who's going to be my caregiver? Who's going to be the nurse? Who's going to be a lot of these areas that many of our immigrants jobs that they perform? We're going to be at a great loss. So we do need immigrants. And that's the great irony, on the one hand, the United States has a big sign saying help wanted. And then the reverse side of that sign says no trespassing. So, I mean, clearly this question has been so politicized that it seems to me like it's rendered our elected officials inept. They're just not able to do anything. Well, they got to stop they got to throw the politics out of it and start following their heart more and worry less about their votes. Well, that's my opinion anyway.
Before we go, I want to mention an essay you wrote last month, which was co-published by America Magazine and Outreach, about what you called, quote, the urgent need for the church to develop a pastoral approach, unquote, to LGBTQ people. This is not the first time you've discussed this topic, having contributed past essays to Outreach in LGBTQ Catholic ministry and addressed their national conference 3 years ago. You wrote, quote, as a church, I fear we are not drawing near enough to our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. We are not moving together on the same journey. How should the church respond to this need? What do Catholics need to do?
I think what I'm trying to speak to here is a pastoral need. I am I'm persuaded by Cardinal McElroy's call and acknowledgement of Pope Francis's pastoral theology, and that the Cardinal has talked about how Francis has elevated pastoral theology so that it's not some kind of a secondary concern, but it's right up there with systematics and ecclesiology and liturgy and everything. So in other words, Jesus, and this is something that was very important to Francis, Jesus encountered people and he journeyed with them. And then after that, in that process, then he would invite them to follow him and invite them to a new life. And so I think it's important to recognize that in that article, I'm not calling, in that specific article, I'm not calling for any doctrinal changes. I'm simply calling for the church to be a loving and compassionate mother, to listen to people. And I have the feeling that a lot of times people make judgments about certain people, say transgender or gay or different uh, groups of people in the LGBTQ community. They don't really know a whole lot about it, and so I think that it's important to listen, and so and secondly, I think it's important that we journey with. These are we're all brothers and sisters in Christ. All of us are trying to work out our call to salvation, our path to holiness. All of us are sinners. When they asked Pope Francis when he first became Pope, how would you describe yourself? He said, I'm a sinner. That was kind of, I said at the cathedral, there's no hope for any of us. But,
And that was in America Magazine.
well, yeah, that's right. And so, I think that I'm just trying to my mind, let people in the LGBTQ community, and not just me, but so many of us, trying to say, no, the church is a loving mother. We want to be there. We want to work with you. Yes, we've got things to work out. There are areas that are still question marks. Human sexuality is a profound gift from God, and it's a mysterious gift. There are elements of it that we just don't understand, of course, and we're, moving more and more to understand. But so I guess you could say what I'm calling for is a more humble approach, that the church would be, to listen. Yes, we have doctrine, but those need to also be unfolded and understood in a deeper, more profound way, and see where that leads us. And this is not easy to have such an exchange. I understand that some feel that the church has prejudged them and they don't want to have that dialogue. But I have been blessed with people at New Ways Ministries, Sister Janine and others, there, Frank, to be able to listen to those in the community, theologians, pastoral ministers who work in the LGBTQ community, members of the community themselves, parents of people, LGBTQ people. And I've been impressed with their holiness, with their goodness, with their desire to be close to Christ, they're really close to the church. They love the church, they love Christ. So that's all. I just wanted to kind of be one voice among many, I think, others too, who are saying that we need to listen more um, and do our best to journey with our brothers and sisters in that community.
Your Excellency, I thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
You're most welcome, Ryan. I enjoyed being with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.